Three things to stop doing if you're somebody who struggles with anxiety. Let me begin by saying it's not easy. It's not going to happen overnight. And it's not as easy as, hey, just stop. So, anxiety is something that I've struggled with, a lot of other people struggle with. It's something that's common amongst anybody and everybody who is human. Now, there are different levels of anxiety. Some people have lower levels, while other people have extremely high levels. This is more or less generalized and can apply to anybody who's really struggling with anxiety. And when we think about anxiety, oftentimes it's a couple of things that are happening. One, it might be the fear of the unknown. It's probably another one could be making assumptions of what may be happening, or other thoughts that might come into mind could be that there's a sense of unknowing or perfectionism or the inability to make a mistake and so on and so forth. And so there's so many things that do happen, but the most common things that I've seen as of recently, and this may change in the future, are these three things that most people do that have anxiety that probably make it worse. The first one is making assumptions. Assumptions are made because our brain has a tendency of wanting to explain what may happen next. This is just instinctual. It's something that we've been born with. It's something that's just been in our DNA for years and years and years. Just because back when we think about it, it's when we were cavemen and we were trying to predict what would happen to ensure our safety for survival means. And then we fast forward to today, we're not in a state of actual survival. I mean, some of us mentally, maybe, some of us could actually be in the situation. But if you're watching this video for the majority, I don't think you're in a state where you're fending off against a saber-toothed tiger. I don't know. Maybe you might be. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. See, don't make assumptions, right? But if I make assumptions, what that's doing is it's detailing a story to let me know how to respond and how to react to a situation that is currently occurring or may happen in the future. And when we make these assumptions, most times we're actually wrong. Not to dismiss or to discredit anybody who is right in following your intuition. I believe that's right. But I also believe that we have to think logically and be able to really challenge our thoughts most of the times, especially if we're challenged with anxiety. So, for example, if somebody sends me a text and maybe it's short winded or maybe not as cheerful as a response that I would have been wanting them to send back, what could happen in that situation is I make the assumption that, oh, they're mad at me. I said something to upset them, or perhaps they don't like me, right? There's all these assumptions made, and we start feeling all types of way. Maybe we feel rejection, maybe we feel anxious, maybe we feel nervous, maybe we feel all these other things where we begin to spiral out. So rather than make an assumption and putting ourselves in a spiral of anxiety, a thing that we can do is challenge our own thoughts by assuming that they may not like me. Let's challenge that thought and say, hey, maybe they're short on time. Maybe they're busy doing something. Maybe something at their work had upset them. Maybe they're dealing with some situation with their parents or with a spouse. I don't know. And so if I assume that this person may not like me by how they're responding or they may be mad at me, all I'm doing is causing myself pain and assuming the worst out of a person who I thoroughly enjoy if I'm texting them. And so rather than putting the thought out there and the assumption that, it's a negative connotation as we're interpreting what they've said, let's just challenge those thoughts by saying, well, maybe there's something going on, or maybe that there is something outside of my control that is happening that's causing them to react in the way that they are or respond in the way they are, but always grounding myself and reminding myself that more than likely it's not anything I've done. Number two, we are always in the state of go, 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 be fast, hurry up and get it done so we can move on to the next thing. Or that there may not be enough time in the day. Or that I'm worried because it's this amount of time, which means I only have this amount of time. And so we have a tendency of rushing to do things because we feel as if we're going to accomplish more, or perhaps that if we get that done, then we can move on to the next thing, and that I regain control by rushing through things. And when we rush through things, all that's going to do is make us feel more anxious. It's going to heighten our sense of awareness, and it's going to make us feel uncomfortable. Let's just be honest. Nobody likes being rushed or hurried. And so, one thing that has helped me significantly when it comes to slowing down, being more patient, and taking my time without having to feel as if I'm rushing myself is to tell myself patience. When I use the word patience and I say it as slow and as calmly and as soft as I do, in the midst of rushing and trying to do something fast, it does help out. And so I tell myself, when I can catch myself rushing, I tell myself, patience, patience, patience. And by the third to fifth one in, I can feel my body relax. And so this does apply to a lot of aspects in either my line of work, with other people, whether it's with my partner, whether it's with myself, my pets, anything that I'm doing, and I feel myself rushing or feeling as if I need to hurry up, or that I'm starting to lose my patience, I just do the opposite and begin to tell myself to be patient and to practice that word and to ground myself into my breath, into my consciousness, and into my mindfulness so that I can be present rather than try to hurry up and be in the next place. Number three, the need to find out what's next, or to try to comfort yourself into the fear of the unknown. And let's be honest, not knowing and not having answers is a scary place to be, because it feels that we go back to our first stage of anxiety, which is us trying to predict what might happen. And so, again, we're trying to find an equilibrium or homeostasis of a balance within our brain to tell our body, to tell our mind to relax and say, hey, here's what's happening and here's what's going to go next. For example, hey, do you want to come over and hang out? Most times we could just say, yeah, sure, why not? What time? People who struggle with anxiety will be asking more detailed questions. Who's going to be there? Where are we going to be? What time? How long? It goes on and on and on. And it's good to have that information. But again, if it's coming from a place where it's trying to snuff out this feeling of fear of unknown, then perhaps we should challenge that thought. But if it's coming from a place of just wanting the details so you can plan accordingly because there might be other things going on in your day prior or after that event, then that makes sense. But if you're doing it because you're afraid, it's an anxious response to a very relaxed state of just being with another person, right? But again, when we think about anxiety, oftentimes it's coming from a place of fear. It's coming from us not knowing because we're afraid of something that may happen or the unpredictability. And if we're caught off guard, we don't know how to respond, how to react to the situation, and we feel injustice because of, well, you didn't tell me this was going to happen. But if we really challenge these thoughts and look deeper into them, that alone of not knowing what may happen and just being okay with it is in essence hurting us, because we're causing this extreme fear of the unpredictability and it being something so big that we can't handle. So we have to know right now, well, what would happen if we were to pause and let ourselves experience some uncertainty? I'm not saying you have to immediately implement that right away and live unknowingly, but what I am saying is that if you're somebody who is I need to know every detail about what's going to happen so that I know I'm safe. Let's start letting go of that comfort because it's initially hurting us. And to begin that process, it's to just maybe ask one less question. Maybe instead of asking who's going to be there, just say, what time should I be there? And then let the next stage be unknown. Another example would be if you're going out to eat uh, and you've never had something, but you're interested in it, but you're like, no, I don't know, I'm just going to avoid it. Maybe you try it out. Worst thing that happens is you don't like it. Best thing that happens, it's a great meal. Um, Everything will still be the same the next time you go back to that restaurant and order the same dish you've always liked. You've had it how many times? It's going to be there. It's not going to go away. So practice small steps towards not knowing everything because we won't know everything. And if, to be honest, if we were to know everything, life would be boring. Life would also be extremely stressful. Uh, but overall, having some uncertainty is okay. And so, if we take away everything about what I just shared with those who do struggle with anxiety, big things that we can try to remember and techniques and things to practice would be to not make assumptions by reframing the thought and challenging it, being more patient with ourselves and with others and with anything that we're doing by practicing the word patience in itself, embracing the unknown and allowing ourselves to practice new things and new experiences by taking small little risks so that we can experience an unknown and see how that outcome is rather than the assumptions or the need to know about these things. If you found this helpful, or if you have questions or things you want me to go deeper in, please by all means feel free to leave a comment below or ask more questions, and I will see you in the next video.